Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. On upscale Madison Avenue, a small luxury clothing store glowed under the fluorescent lights. Inside, mannequins displayed bold, colorful creations, but the atmosphere was heavy that day. Isabella Turner, a 22-year-old black woman, was working the counter. Her face, usually bright and proud, was marked by tension. Two customers, from New York's high society, openly mocked her. They criticized her accent, her outfit, and even the color of her skin, all with cruel smiles. The store staff, visibly uncomfortable, didn't dare intervene. Isabella tried to remain calm, but every laugh, every hurtful remark made her shrink a little more. Suddenly, the shop door burst open. An elegant man in his 50s entered with a firm step. His piercing blue eyes scanned the scene. His features hardened as he recognized Isabella. His heart sank. This was his daughter. A cold anger seized him. How could she have been treated like this, in his own shop, right before his eyes? Without warning, he walked over to the customers, his voice booming like thunder. "Excuse me, but I think you forgot one thing: respect." Silence fell immediately. All eyes turned to him, all except Isabella, who was holding back tears, torn between shame and relief at seeing her father intervene. That day, Isabella knew her life was about to change. Not only because her father was there to defend her, but also because the secrets he had been keeping for years were finally about to come to light, revealing a world of power, fortune, and revenge she could never have imagined. Isabella Turner clumsily wiped dust off the shop's wooden counter, Madison elegance. Despite her legendary patience, this morning she felt an unusual amount of pressure. The elite customers who were browsing the store today weren't there to admire the clothes, but to humiliate, criticize, and belittle her every move. "That color doesn't suit you at all," sneered one of them, a blonde woman in a strict suit. "And you could at least smile properly, it would look more presentable." Isabella lowered her head, clenching her hands around the rag she was using to clean the counter. She knew this feeling all too well, being judged for her skin color, for her youth, for her appearance. Memories of her high school years where she'd been rejected and mocked resurfaced, but she forced herself to breathe calmly. "Isabella, bring me that dress, quickly," the customer yelled, pointing at her. As she walked toward the department, the bell at the entrance of the store rang. Isabella looked up, thinking of another difficult customer, but stopped short. The man who had just entered was no ordinary customer. He wore a tailored suit, impeccably cut, and an expression Isabella hadn't seen in years, her father's, Jonathan Turner, a world-renowned millionaire, but whom she hadn't seen since childhood. His eyes immediately fell on her, and a mixture of anger and worry crossed his face. The customers, unaware of who he was, continued to mock him. But Jonathan stepped forward, each step echoing in the silent shop, and his gaze dug the sarcasm into the floor like swords. "Excuse me, but I think you've missed the target," he said, his voice firm and cold. Isabella felt her shoulders relax slightly. The moment had come, the confrontation with the wealthy and arrogant clients was about to begin, and for the first time, she wasn't alone. Jonathan Turner strode toward the two customers with an imposing presence. Each step seemed to weigh a ton, and the peals of cruel laughter that had filled the shop seconds earlier died away before him. "Who are you to speak to my daughter like that?" he said, his voice deep and firm, revealing a cold anger that had been pent up for too long. The women, surprised, exchanged confused looks. "Your daughter?" one of them stammered, unable to hide her confusion. "Oh, we didn't know." "You didn't know?" Jonathan repeated, approaching them, each word a hammer. "You thought you could humiliate someone without consequence? Isabella isn't just my daughter, she's a person worthy of respect, which you seem to have forgotten." Isabella, frozen behind the counter, felt a mixture of pride and embarrassment. Tears threatened to fall, but she knew this moment would change everything. She had spent her life enduring mockery, smiling to avoid creating conflict, but her father's presence gave her new strength. One of the customers tried to laugh nervously. "Well, it was just a little joke, nothing serious." Jonathan shook his head slowly. A joke? He said with frightening calm. Respect is no joke. And humiliating someone, in their own shop, in front of others, that's a mistake you won't soon forget. He gave Isabella a discreet sign, and she immediately understood what he wanted, for her to come out from behind the counter. Trembling but determined, she stepped forward, head held high, and met her father's gaze. In this simple exchange, a silent complicity was established. "I'm sorry for this behavior," she said calmly, but with a newfound authority in her voice. "I never meant for you to feel superior to me, and I was never your servant." The customers paled, realizing that the young woman they had tried to humiliate was not only protected by her father, but was able to defend herself with strength and dignity. Jonathan, seeing the situation under control, threw one last icy look at the customers. "I think you'd better leave, before this shop becomes a place where you feel very uncomfortable." In silence, the women left the shop, embarrassed and humiliated in their turn. Silence fell again, but this time it was charged with a different tension, that of justice finally restored. Isabella sighed, relieved and grateful, and turned her gaze to her father. "Thank you," she whispered. Jonathan smiled weakly, but his expression remained serious. "This is just the beginning, Isabella. There's a lot you need to know, about me, about our family, and about this world you'll have to learn to defend yourself in." After the humiliated customers left, Jonathan Turner gestured for Isabella to follow him into the back room, a space she'd never had the chance to see. The walls were lined with shelves filled with files, documents, and locked safes, testaments to a wealth and power she'd never suspected. "Isabella," Jonathan began, his voice softer but laden with gravity, "it's time you knew the truth about our family." Isabella frowned. "The truth? You always talk to me about work and money, but never about this." Jonathan took a deep breath. "Your mother isn't just a talented stylist. She was also involved in a network of international corporations that few people know about. When she died, I had to protect what we owned. And that includes you." Isabella felt her heart race. "Me? How does this concern me?" "Because you are the sole legitimate heir to this fortune and everything we've built." Jonathan handed her a thick envelope. Inside were legal documents, contracts, and business certificates. "Isabella, everything you knew as a small shop was a fraction of what our family owns. And you're going to learn to take your place." The young woman felt a mixture of wonder and fear. Her world, until then limited to clothing aisles and daily mockery, had suddenly expanded. "But I don't know anything about any of that," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm not ready." Jonathan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to be. I'll be there to teach you. But know this, the world can be cruel, Isabella. Today, these clients humiliated you. Tomorrow, others will try to manipulate you, steal from you, or destroy you. But I will guide you so you can defend yourself and even turn situations in your favor." Isabella felt a new determination rise within her. Yesterday's humiliations were no longer just wounds, they were lessons for what she would become. She took a deep breath. "So, I'm ready to learn." Jonathan finally smiled, a mixture of pride and relief in his eyes. "Good. Let's begin. And trust me, this is just the beginning of a life you never imagined." The next morning, Isabella returned to the shop, but this time with a different feeling. The fear and shame of the day before had been replaced by a burning curiosity and a newfound determination. Her father, Jonathan, had decided that she would begin her learning about power and family management from today. They settled into the main office in the back room, a space transformed into a mini boardroom. Screens showed real-time sales, inventory, and even bank accounts related to the family businesses. Jonathan placed a thick binder filled with strategic documents and financial reports in front of her. "Isabella, to run a business, you have to understand not only the product you're selling, but also the world around you. People can be cruel, manipulative, and often, they see your kindness as weakness." He paused, letting his words resonate. "Your shop was a microcosm of that world. Yesterday's customers didn't just test you, they revealed your potential and your weaknesses. Isabella nodded. I understand, but where do I start? Jonathan smiled, almost proudly. By observation. You'll spend the next few days learning how each department works: finance, marketing, logistics, and, above all, human relations. Every decision you make has consequences, and you must learn to anticipate the reactions. He then accompanied her to a confidential meeting with the company's CFO. Isabella silently observed how the discussions about figures, investments, and business strategies unfolded. Every word, every gesture, every silence had meaning. She felt a surge of adrenaline. It was a new world, demanding, but fascinating. At the end of the day, Jonathan took her back to the shop. Remember, Isabella, being strong doesn't mean crushing others. It means knowing when to speak, when to act, and when to remain silent. And one day, you will use everything you learn to protect those you love, and to never be humiliated again. Isabella clenched her fists in determination. She was no longer just the humiliated girl in a small shop. She was about to become a woman capable of turning every humiliation into strength and every injustice into opportunity. A few days later, Jonathan took Isabella to a meeting with a major investor. This was no ordinary meeting. This investor, an influential and formidable man named Charles Whitman, had a reputation for testing the abilities and character of those with whom he dealt. Isabella, Jonathan said, looking her straight in the eye, today, you won't just be my daughter. You'll represent the company. Show me what you've learned. Isabella felt her heart beat faster. The fear of failing, of appearing weak, was there, but she took a deep breath and remembered her father's words: know when to speak, when to act, and when to remain silent. The meeting began. Charles Whitman immediately examined her with a penetrating, calculating gaze. So, you're the famous Isabella, he said, his voice icy. Your father says you have much to learn, but can we really trust him to represent our interests? Isabella took a deep breath. Every word she spoke had to be measured. Mr. Whitman, she replied calmly, I understand that you are testing my competence and judgment. I can assure you that I take this responsibility very seriously. The investor raised an eyebrow, surprised by his poise. Very well, then explain to me your plans for launching our new product line in the coming quarter. Isabella used all the notes and strategies her father had taught her. She spoke precisely about numbers, market trends, and communication strategy, anticipating some difficult questions. Each answer strengthened her credibility and impressed Charles Whitman. At the end of the meeting, the investor stood up, visibly impressed. I must admit, you're more prepared than I thought. Your father is right, you have potential. Jonathan smiled at her, pride evident in his eyes. Isabella, though exhausted, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had just passed her first real test. She was no longer just the humiliated girl in a shop, she was beginning to become an heiress capable of standing up to giants. As they left the office, Jonathan whispered, Today you passed the test. But Isabella, this is just the beginning. The world is full of challenges, and sometimes they will come from those who think they are above you. Isabella nodded, determined. She knew now that every humiliation, every hardship, every contemptuous look could be transformed into strength and power. And she was ready to go further than ever before. A few weeks after her meeting with Charles Whitman, Isabella went to the boutique to prepare a new exclusive collection. All seemed calm, until the door burst open and a group of well-dressed people entered, looking around arrogantly. The leader of the group, an elegant man named Victor Langston, approached the counter and said in a condescending tone, Well, look who we have here, the millionaire's daughter. Interesting. Isabella felt a chill run down her spine, but she straightened immediately, remembering her father's lessons: calm, strategy, control. She smiled politely, but firmly. Hello, can I help you? Victor burst out laughing mockingly. Oh no. We didn't come to buy. We're here to test you. You know, some people don't easily accept a young woman taking the place she deserves. At that moment, several customers in the store began to feel uneasy. Isabella took a deep breath and decided not to show her fear. She turned to her staff and gave them a discreet signal, "Stay calm." She then addressed Victor directly, her voice calm but sharp, "If you've come to intimidate or destabilize me, know that it won't work. This shop is not just my workplace, it's protected by strict rules and contracts. Any malicious action will be punished." Victor frowned, surprised by his aplomb. "Very well, impressive. But let's see how you handle a real-life situation." At that moment, he ordered his associates to cause a disturbance, causing clothing to fall and racks to overturn. Isabella, without panicking, used her knowledge of strategy and communication to calm the situation. She led her employees with confidence, showed tact, and invoked legal regulations and store security to neutralize the intruders. A few minutes later, Victor and his group, frustrated and humiliated, left the shop, realizing they had underestimated the young heiress. The customers applauded, impressed by Isabella's skill and courage. Jonathan, who had been observing the scene remotely through a surveillance system, then entered the shop and looked at her proudly. "Very well done, Isabella. You have just taken a crucial step, confronting those who would destabilize you. But know that this was only a small taste. The outside world is full of people who will try to test you, sometimes more severely." Isabella smiled, a mixture of relief and determination in her eyes. She now knew she could not only defend herself, but also turn every attack into a strategic victory. And this newfound strength would soon be tested even more intensely. After the incident with Victor Langston, Isabella felt a newfound confidence flood her. She now knew she could handle unforeseen situations and protect the store from any outside attack. But her father, Jonathan, wanted her to go even further. "Isabella," he said one morning as he entered the shop, "it's time you took on more responsibility. You're no longer just my protégé, you're now a leader. I want you to start making important decisions for the shop and the family business." Isabella felt her heart race. Making decisions? Running an entire company? It was daunting, yet exciting at the same time. She nodded, determined not to disappoint her father. Jonathan gave him several files, expansion strategies, partnerships with international brands, and a financial overview. "Read all of this," he said. "And tomorrow, we'll discuss your first decisions." That night, Isabella worked tirelessly, analyzing every document, every contract, and every opportunity. She quickly realized that the business world was full of traps, power plays, and manipulation. But she also began to identify her strengths, her intelligence, her insight, and her courage. The next day, Jonathan asked her about her ideas for improving sales and strengthening the store's reputation. Isabella proposed a bold plan: organize an exclusive event to showcase the new collection to VIP clients, while promoting the values of diversity and inclusion. Jonathan nodded, impressed. "Very good, Isabella. You've understood something fundamental: power doesn't come from money alone, but from how you influence people and inspire trust." During the event, Isabella caused a sensation. Clients and partners were captivated by her charismatic presence and her ability to manage every detail. But this success also revealed another secret: some of her father's trusted employees had hidden agendas, seeking to take advantage of Isabella's rise to power for their own gain. Isabella felt the thrill of danger. Success always attracts jealousy and betrayal. But she was ready. Using her father's teachings and her own abilities, she began to weave her own strategy, detecting threats and preparing to turn every obstacle to her advantage. That day, Isabella understood a crucial truth: to become powerful and respected, she must not only confront the outside world, but also navigate the murky waters of family and allies. And she was determined never to be humiliated again. A few weeks after the hugely successful VIP event, Isabella thought everything was going perfectly. The store was thriving, her strategic ideas were bearing fruit, and she was gradually gaining the respect of customers and partners. But she would soon discover that the threat wasn't just coming from outside. One afternoon, while reviewing the shop's financial accounts, she noticed a series of strange transactions. Funds were being mysteriously transferred to a fictitious company, and several key employees seemed to be involved. Isabella felt her heart sink. This looked like internal betrayal. She decided to confront one of her father's closest employees, Michael Hastings, a seemingly loyal and discreet man. "Michael," she said calmly but firmly, "I've noticed some irregularities in the accounts. Can you explain to me what's going on?" Michael paled, and a moment of tense silence filled the room. "Isabella, it's not what you think," he stammered. "Then explain to me," she insisted, her eyes burning with intensity. "Why are funds being transferred to this company no one has ever heard of?" Michael sighed, realizing he couldn't lie anymore. "All right, that's true. Some people on the outside, partners who don't like to see your rise, have tried to manipulate certain employees to sabotage your plans." Isabella felt a surge of anger and frustration, but she forced herself to remain calm. Every emotion she controlled became a weapon. "Who's behind this?" she asked, her voice icy. Michael hesitated, then whispered a name that made Isabella shiver. "It's Victor Langston. He can't stand to see you succeed. He's recruited accomplices to discredit you." The name echoed in her mind. Victor Langston, the arrogant man who had tried to unsettle her in the store, had now orchestrated a more subtle and dangerous attack. Isabella straightened, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Very well. Then it's time to turn the situation to our advantage. I won't let anyone threaten what we've built." She knew the confrontation wouldn't be easy. She would have to use strategy, intelligence, and courage to unmask all of Victor's accomplices and protect her shop and her reputation. But one thing was clear: Isabella Turner was no longer the humiliated girl Victor thought he could intimidate. She was ready to fight back, and triumph. After discovering Victor Langston's betrayal, Isabella knew she had to act quickly. She couldn't afford to let enemies manipulate her business or tarnish her reputation. But this time, she wouldn't react out of impulsive anger. She would use intelligence, strategy, and discretion. With the help of Michael Hastings, she began collecting evidence. Emails, suspicious financial transfers, coded messages, everything was carefully documented. Isabella wanted Victor and his accomplices to realize that underestimating an heiress could be very costly. She then decided to organize a private event, supposedly to present a new product line to investors. In reality, it was a perfectly orchestrated trap. All of Victor's accomplices were invited, unaware that Isabella had planned every detail to trap them. When the day came, Isabella was impeccable. Her presence commanded respect, and her confidence shone through in every gesture. The guests, including Victor, behaved normally, but Isabella knew exactly who she was watching and how every reaction could be used against them. At the crucial moment, she launched the presentation of the new collection, but subtly, incriminating documents were projected onto the screens, exposing the financial maneuvers and secret communications of Victor's accomplices. The shocked guests immediately understood the gravity of the situation. Victor paled as his plan was revealed. He tried to downplay the facts, but Isabella calmly and precisely laid out each piece of evidence. "You tried to sabotage my shop and manipulate my employees. But you forgot one thing: underestimating a determined person can be very costly." The accomplices, humiliated and trapped, had no choice but to admit their guilt and leave the event, heads bowed. Victor, furious but powerless, realized he had underestimated Isabella Turner, the young heiress who had just transformed her vulnerability into power. Jonathan, who had been watching the scene from a distance, entered at that moment and placed a proud hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Isabella, today, you didn't just protect the store. You showed that you can fight back with intelligence and composure. You're ready for whatever the world throws at you." Isabella smiled, a mixture of triumph and determination in her eyes. She knew she had reached a decisive milestone. The humiliated girl was now a woman capable of defending her name, her family, and her budding empire. Within months of her brilliant counterattack, Isabella Turner had become a key figure in the family business and the Elegance Madison boutique. Every decision she made was calculated, every move thoughtful, and her presence now commanded respect and admiration. The boutique, once a simple workplace, had become a symbol of diversity, elegance, and power. Customers came not only for the clothes, but also to meet the young heiress who had transformed humiliation into strength and obstacles into opportunities. Victor Langston and his accomplices had disappeared from Isabella's professional circle. None of them dared return, for fear of suffering another defeat at the hands of a woman who had learned to anticipate, respond, and dominate every situation. One evening, Jonathan Turner invited Isabella to dinner in the company's main office, a moment of calm after so many storms. "Isabella," he said, his voice full of pride, "you've come an incredible way. You started as the humiliated girl in her own shop, and today, you're a leader no one can underestimate." Isabella smiled, grateful, but more determined than ever. "Thank you, Dad. But what I've learned is that true power doesn't come just from money or control. It comes from self-belief, perseverance, and the courage to get back up, even after the cruelest humiliations." Jonathan nodded. "Exactly. And now, Isabella, the world is yours." Isabella stood, gazing out at the illuminated city through the large windows. Every failure, every humiliation, every challenge had forged her strength. She knew new battles awaited her, but nothing could stop her now. She was ready to take her place in the world, to lead the family business with wisdom and determination, and to show that even in adversity, a woman could rise to the top. That evening, Isabella Turner wasn't just celebrating her victory over her enemies, she was celebrating her rebirth. The humiliated girl was no more. In her place stood a powerful, respected, and invincible woman, ready to write her own destiny.